And what I want to do is start by moving you into some breakout rooms so that you can brainstorm questions that you all would like to ask me about the course. Um, so let me prep some breakout rooms. You're going to be in groups of 3 or 4. Remember, your goal is let me put this in the chat. Um, Brainstorm questions you can ask me about the course or me. If you have questions you just want to ask me about me, you can. And I'm also going to put this in the chat. Decide who's going to ask the question. Like when you get swept back from being in the breakout rooms, um, who's going to ask the question or who's going to type it into the chat. Otherwise, sometimes I realize people brainstorm questions and then everyone comes back and just sort of looks at each other like, who's going to say the question? Um,
Oh, shoot. Where's
so
my pen?
there it is in the chat. Brainstorm questions you can ask me about the course, or they can be questions about me, and decide who will ask each question. And again, you could, just decide that, someone's going to put it in the chat when you get swept back into the room, or someone's going to unmute and ask. Either way is good, but I want you to go forth and once you get into your breakout rooms, here are the things that you're going to tell each other. So even though it's probably on your screen, just tell everyone your first name and what content area you are, and then um, where you teach or hope to teach. All right. I'm going to set the timer for 6 minutes. I will see you back in 6 minutes. Does everyone see something they can click? No, do you see something you can click to join? Some groups are getting that last few words in.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome back, everybody.
You fixing the guy? Okay.
Oh,
All right, so I'm ready for a bunch of questions. I know I'm probably going to see some in the chat. Others you're just going to call out. Start sending questions my way. I'm ready.
So I have a question. At some point, did I hear you say that Monday night meetings were optional?
They are not.
Okay.
There are four of them and they're required. So everyone who's not here tonight is going to have to um, do a big makeup thing. I feel a little sad for them.
Okay, so if we're out of town, you'll be recording these and we should have a different assignment for it.
That's right. And you'll watch it on Perusall. I'll just upload it as a video into Perusall and you'll annotate it and some things like that. Other questions?
So I hate to burst your bubble on this, but our group said that we really didn't have any questions, that we truly just appreciate how easy you've made it for us. I mean, you have detailed everything, labeled it inside and out throughout Perusall, throughout, what is it, D2L? Yeah. So
Well,
we
that's
just
good
appreciate you.
because I feel like it's all a little crazy. Well, because I feel like the way I do things is just, in some cases, just slightly different from what other people do, and sometimes very different from what other people do. So, yeah. But I'm glad some of you are finding it possible to follow it. It
It also helps.
does make
Yeah.
sense eventually, but
Yeah. No, it also helps when you have another class of yours at the same time.
very true.
So it's just going in and out between each class.
That's right. And the majority of people who are taking learner development have had a class with me before, a different semester. And I always use a very similar pattern. I always use the personal pages. I use Perusall. I mean, so I do the checklist. Yeah, so really for everyone who's had me before, it's probably not that crazy.
I was gonna say I kind of agree with Colton, and I love that I've had you before, but you're very structured. I like everything is just labeled and very organized. But my group had one other question.
Okay.
We were kind of just interested to know, because it's always fun to hear about your experiences and your preferences and stuff.
Mhm.
So, for example, how like the section we're doing right now is the child, adolescent, and teen development. Which one are you like most looking forward to, or do you like the most? I guess like which unit would you say is maybe the most fun or that you like the most?
So are you asking which do I prefer more, child, adolescent, or teen, or
Oh, out of the whole class, the whole
class?
yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's a
Every
difficult
week.
one. But I will say first, because the other question that you didn't ask is easier to answer because I am very much like into high school students. I feel like I bond easily with how high school students. So it's just like, I just can immediately click. I did teach middle school for a while. I did enjoy it, but I spent a lot of time thinking, like, what is wrong with you people? I had taught high school for a long time before I taught middle school, and they kept they kept touching each other so much. Like, how could it be possible? What need is there for you all to be touching each other so much? Or it took forever to, like, I would say something like, get out a piece of paper and a pencil. Somehow this would take forever. Like, how how are y'all doing this? I don't understand how it could take that long. Yeah. So I do.
That's when you have to say weird stuff that embarrasses them. Every time they do the touching thing, that's a middle school thing, 100%. I always say, "Hey, touch each other after school, not right now." And then I just continue talking, and they'll be like, "What? I know what?" Like they get so defensive, especially if it's like two boys.
Yep. It is, but that is one of the things I love about that particular module is it's very fascinating to me how students change from year to year. Um, you know, even just from sixth grade to seventh grade or 11th grade to 12th. I mean, there's a pretty decent change, massive change between each year. And I find that really interesting because we were talking about age before most of you arrived in the Zoom. And I would say that, you hit a certain age and you do change, you do keep changing, but nothing like, those years of first growth. Um, but my favorite module for the whole course is a hard one, but I think maybe towards the end of the course we're doing a whole unit. It's 4 modules, I think, that are about classroom management and a very specific kind of classroom management called collaborative and proactive solutions. And I think that unit is my favorite because it was a complete game changer for me once I learned that system. Up until that point, I had learned a lot of what I would call like crap classroom management, which was pretty much about, like um, rewards and punishments and give students tickets and just all this stuff that it wasn't great. Um, and then finally, I read a book that was like, oh, this is actually will work and did work. And so I would say that's my favorite unit. And then within that, there's a lesson that's about like exactly how to do it. Like, here are the steps, here's how it works. So I think that's probably my favorite module of the whole course. Other groups, what questions did you come up with? There's one more group, I think, that I haven't heard from.
It's us, number 3. Well, we pretty much feel the same way that Colton and Brooke feel. We all 3 have had you before, and everything is very well detailed and very well explained. And I told them, I said, now you watch, I'll start the module and have to call her. But we really couldn't think of anything. We just agree with what everybody else is saying.
Fair enough. All right. Well, I'm going to send you out into groups again. I'm going to remix. I'm just going to ask the computer to randomly remix for me so you get to meet some more people or talk to old friends. And this round, I want you to think about questions you want to ask me about AI. So my area of expertise, of course, is AI in education. And I do a lot of workshops on that. I have a lot. Maybe I can't answer every question, but I have a lot. There are a lot of questions I could answer. So your goal again is to first introduce yourself. What's your name? What's your content area? Where do you teach? Where do you hope to teach? And then start brainstorming questions you have about AI. And no question is off limits. If I don't know the answer, I'll just tell you I don't know the answer, but let's try it and see what happens. I'm going to make the breakout room a little bit longer because that's a big subject to talk about. And I'm going to recreate the rooms so you're with some different people, and I will see you back here in 10 minutes. For those of you who are watching this on video, I want you to do the same thing. I want you to list questions you have about AI. Now, of course, there's a problem because I'm not here to answer them. So first, I want you to list the questions, and then this will work most of the time. Not all the time, but most of the time. I want you to then ask your questions to AI. and post your answers. So make sure you come up with at least 3 or 4 questions that you really want to know the answer to. I recommend probably using Perplexity is probably going to be the AI that's going to do the best job at just straight up like answering your questions. And put send the answers to me, post the questions in the as an annotation. But email the answers because the answers are going to be too long. Ooh, or better yet, here's an even better idea. Put a new section in your personal page that's called makeup work and put the answers in there or like link to them there. Yeah, that's a good idea. Because I feel like if you tried to put the answers in like an annotation, poor Prussell would be like, okay, that's too long an answer. I'm not sure how big an answer it will accept, but surely it would be too much. So go forth and ask a few questions, get some answers, and then come back and hear a little more.
And just to be sure, you said everyone must type a question in the chat.
That's right.
Okay, just making sure.
So you three can go ahead and put your question in.
Okay.
About this, but
You caught us off guard.
I know. I feel so horrible because it just like unceremoniously just whisks you back in, whether you're done with your sentence or not. It's kind of
know,
cool.
it's terrible.
It does give you
Sorry,
a 30
guys.
seconds warning.
I mean, yeah, and then you threw us off guard by, hey, instead of one person speaking, everybody type in a question in the chat.
Everyone has to have a question. Really, everyone has a question. I can think of 50 questions about AI right now.
So here we go.
Yes. Everyone head over to the chat and start putting your questions. You can put in more than one, but you have to put in at least one.
so Dr. Albee, for those who are driving,
Yes.
can we have an alternative? I'm taking my son down to Atlanta at the moment for rehearsal.
I say
and
just
typing
you
is
just
not the
ask
best.
yours out loud.
Oh yay! Okay, let me know when, and I'll get on.
Now is the perfect time.
All right, so one of the things that I know that we have been wondering, I know that there are a lot of hallucinations and things with the AI. And I know one of the biggest areas that I love it as a math teacher, I use it constantly. I teach my kids, but it sucks at math.
That's right.
Which makes my life so much better because they can't do it. They actually have to do the math. They can ask it for help. They can ask, how would you do this? I mean, I even showed them, I had it add like 4 and 16 and it kept telling me 12 and over and over and over again. I'm like, this is a simple arithmetic. So guys, do not rely on it, which is wonderful. But these ELA teachers, these English teachers, where these kids are simply using it to copy, cut, paste, how do we support these teachers and give them the tools to motivate these kids to stop it and to use it as a tool?
Those are excellent questions, big questions. In fact, I do an entire 2-hour workshop that answers that second question. I will say, first of all, that I think that already many of the AIs have fixed the math problem and they do math perfectly well.
No!
Yeah. And there are specialized apps that are fantastic at math. In fact, recently a group of mathematicians from around the world got together and came up with I can't remember. I want to say it was 100 questions. Let's, for the sake of argument, say it was 100 questions that where there was no answer published on the internet for that math question. And it was a math question that while it has been solved by a human, it was incredibly difficult. Like it took a dissertation, years for a person to, like solve that problem. And AI was not able to solve every problem, but it was able to solve most of them. So Yeah, I mean, it's the level of math it can do is insane. Um, but your bigger question was, basically, how do we keep students from cheating? Um,
Yes.
I would say, y'all are probably not going to super love my answer here, but part of the answer, I think, is not having students do required homework most of the time. That's where the problem happens because you're not overseeing what's happening when they're at home. They could do anything. You send them home with something, they could easily just plug it into an AI. Before AI ever came along, I was a believer in assigning little to no homework. We know from research that it does absolutely no good in elementary school. Um, it does very little good in middle school, just doesn't increase learning gains. And it helps a bit in high school, but especially by the time students reach high school, they have jobs. Many of them have jobs because they have to have jobs to help support their families. Students have clubs and sports and all kinds of things that are very healthy and wonderful that they're doing. And so it's probably not a half bad idea to either not assign homework, or something that's wonderful is to assign homework that is just a check for understanding, and students don't have to do it unless they want to do it. If they feel like they need some extra help, more power to them. You're going to, give them some feedback, but they don't have to. And I think that's going to solve a big portion of the issue, is simply um, having students do most of their work in a classroom, especially like English language arts. What I have advocated all along, again, before AI ever came on the scene, was that students do a lot of writing by hand in a workshop atmosphere, that they're busy writing something that they're interested in writing, and the teacher is, um, you know, like going from seat to seat and supporting. So it's just an atmosphere like that is a better one anyway. I think the bigger problem is going to be for your counterparts who teach college, because in college, homework is very useful. It shows substantial learning gains and it's incredibly important. And there, it's just way harder. Um, but yeah, that would be my advice. Let's see
Thank you.
what all these questions we've got here are. Is paying for AI worth it? If so, is it that much better? I would say mostly no. I think, but here's the thing. It's just, if you pay for it, it's just a lot easier in terms of you can just go in and use it and it's all good. I'll show you the one I use. I use more than one actually, but the one that I use most frequently, do a screen share here, is called Boodlebox, Boodle box. And this is what it looks like. And so when I go to ask it, give it a prompt, I can choose from all these different AI models. I can use like ChatGPT, any of their models. I can use Claude, any of the Claude models, any of the Gemini models. So just having access to all the major models except for Copilot is pretty great. I also like Boodlebox because it's what's called it's FERPA compliant, which means that it is the highest level of security needed for education. And so, like, if you wanted to upload student work, you could. Whereas in most AIs, I wouldn't upload student work because they don't have a level of privacy built in that's what you would want. Also, Boodlebox allows you to keep a knowledge bank. So I keep loads of articles and books and all kinds of things in there so that I can say, when you answer, build off this. Yeah, so I really do. I pay $20 a month for Boodlebox, and I think it's worth it. But that being said, you can, by kind of playing the AIs, get most of what you need. So, for example, Manus.im is a very high level AI, MANUS, and but it gives you only 300 credits a day. And when you've used them up, it won't work anymore. And so you can't use it a whole lot, but you could use it, a little bit. And that's true of a lot of the AIs that you can use them a certain amount and then they kind of like drop off in terms of their quality. But if you're willing to move, like skip around from AI on any given day, if you have a lot to do, I think you could probably do pretty well with the free ones, unless you're doing something peculiar, something that really requires, a lot of thinking power, so to speak. But for what most teachers are doing, I think you can get away with free models if you're willing to skip around. Next question. Do you feel like it should be more strict with certain content areas? Definitely. Well, I don't think it so much has to do with the content area. It all has to do with what is any particular assignment trying to measure? What is any particular assignment trying to measure? Because I can think of lots of English language arts assignments where AI could be used and it would really help the students learn. Anytime that it's hindering learning, you don't want to use it. And anytime it's supporting and helping learning, you could. So I don't think it has anything to do with the subject area. It has more to do with what is it you're trying to teach them, and is what you're trying to teach them going to be helped or hindered by including AI? How can AI help with classroom management? Okay, now there's a question I've never been asked before. I don't think I can easily answer it today because we haven't gotten to the unit where we're going to talk about classroom management. But the unit where we are going to talk with classroom management, I can see where it would help in two ways. One, I think AI is going to help you because you can role play with it. So you can tell it to be a student and have a conversation before you actually have to go have the conversation with that student or with a parent. So it's going to give you a chance to practice. That's really nice. But also, I think that you could have it brainstorm ideas. So like I have a student who has this issue and it's, this is what's happening in the class. Give me 5 ideas for what we could do to help solve the problem. So for that kind of thing, it could actually be good. It's just really good. One of the things I like it best for is give me 10 ideas for blank. I use it for that all the time. What makes AI go deeper? For example, in the module, you asked it to be an expert in the area. You have to push it to go deeper. If you don't, it usually will give you something pretty surface. Asking it, telling it it's an expert helps. Frequently, I will give it prompts that even say, I want you to go, literally, I say to the AI, I want you to go deep. I don't want this to be shallow. I don't want a bunch of bullet points. I want this to be more like a book chapter. So by telling it how you want it to act, what it is you want, and literally telling it to go deep. Those kinds of things really do help. That was a big problem for me at first, was it was giving me a lot of, kind of the AI crap, and I needed it to do more. Let's see. Next question. In your work with AI and exploration of it, have you reached out or spoken with anyone who has helped you to know how developers work with it behind the scenes and continue to improve it? I've certainly read a good bit about that. It's something I'm interested in. Of course, the problem is the experts set it in motion, and then it quickly became so complicated that even they have no idea what it's doing. It's kind of like how we don't know how the human brain works very well, because there are so many billions and trillions of connections that, we can guess how it works, but we're not sure. One of the major ways they have worked to improve it, and this has already happened, is they taught it to go slower. And you may have noticed that initial AIs answered like that. But here was the problem. They were answering linearly. That's a hard word to say. So, like if you asked it to solve the New York Times crossword puzzle, it would generally, just like humans do, sometimes you put in the wrong word. It fits and you think you're right, but then like you get to 3 down and you think, 7 across, I must be wrong because now 3 down doesn't fit. So AI couldn't do anything about that in the beginning, because it just went in a row, and if it made a mistake up here, when it got to here, it just went with it. It was just like, oh well, mistake, keep going. Then they taught it to reason, which means it won't give you an answer until it's thought through the whole problem. So now it could do the New York Times crossword puzzle, because if it got something wrong and then later realized it, it would go back and change it, and it wouldn't show you the answer till it had the whole thing. So more and more you're going to see AIs that are slower, and that's a good thing because it's working through the whole thing. I was working with one today where it would say, it was saying what it was doing as it did it. And it would say things like, okay, now I'm realizing that I haven't done this thing you asked me to. So right now what I'm working on is fixing that problem. It's really interesting how they've taken it to that next level by basically teaching it to reason. Will AI ever take over our jobs completely? If by our jobs you mean teaching, no. I think it will take over a number of jobs. It will also produce a number of new jobs. But I do not think it will take over teaching at all, hardly. I think there's probably about 20% of our jobs that we can kind of farm out to the AI, mostly things that were a little boring or, that it could take care of. But here's the thing. Already in many places around the United States, before AI ever came, there were schools that did an experiment. And that experiment was this heavy duty one-to-one computing, where every student had their own computer and they would work most of the day on their computer doing work that was tailored to them. And everyone thought this sounded great because the computer was always tailoring it to the student. So a student who needed to move faster could, student who needed extra help, the computer was giving it extra help. Doesn't this sound great? They said. But it turns out what humans need, and especially adolescents and teens and children need, is a lot of human interaction, real, true human interaction. It is what keeps them from just going into a terrible, depressive downward spiral. So there's what students most need is you as a human acting like a human. And so it's going to be fine to, maybe 10 minutes out of a class period, have students do something with the AI where it's tailored to them and it's, all doing that great stuff. 10 minutes, no problem. Go for it. But once you start moving into even 20% of the class period being very much screen based, you're starting to run into issues. Is it a good idea to introduce AI in middle school, especially for ELA and writing essays? I do think we should introduce it in middle school, probably in smallish amounts, probably in a fairly, very careful way. I do think it's better that they know some about it. You know how when you don't know about something, it almost makes you want it more, and they're gonna play with it in any way when we're not around at home. So I think it is a good idea to help them start to understand the ethics and to understand the safe, how to be safe with it and so forth. That's all good. Would I use it for writing? Maybe. A little, because here I've got a former student. He's working on his doctorate, and he's been playing around with this a little. And we came up with this idea together, and he's been experimenting with it, where he got students who were struggling writers who hated writing, hated it, didn't want to write anything, hate. And what he did was he had them use a transcribing app, and he said, just tell the app a story from your life, and it's going to transcribe it, right? So, all right, so now they've gotten something that they wrote, right? I mean, they said those words, it's theirs. And then he had them copy and paste the story they told that has now been transcribed into an AI, and he taught them some prompts to kind of help the AI turn it into a real narrative, a good quality narrative. And so many of the students were so excited. This is the first time I've ever written something that was really good. And in the back of your head, you're going like, you didn't really write it. You only kind of wrote it. Really, the AI wrote it, but let it go. They felt like they had done, for the first time, done something that they were proud of. And so by doing a little of that at the beginning, he was able to hook them into starting to take an interest in writing. And he also, was able to kind of wean them off it fairly, over just a few weeks, and then they were really writing. So I can see where doing something like that, and that wouldn't have to only happen in English, it could happen in any course. It's kind of an interesting idea to use AI to hook and let them use it a good bit and then wean them off it some. It's something to think about. Is there an AI program that you recommend the most? If student, all right, let's go. I'll stop at that one for a minute. I I wouldn't say there's a lot of them that are terrible. So stick to the big ones. So you're going to use either ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini. Those are the best ones. Copilot is also pretty darn good and has more privacy protection. So those are your big four. I would stick with those, or a specialized app. So, for example, one of the ones I've mentioned is Manus, is also a good one if you specifically need some like lengthy writing. Well, the biggest problem I've had with Manus, it won't stop. With the other AIs, I would struggle. Like I would try to get it to write, let's say 4,000 words, and it would be like, it would write 2,000. And I would say, do you not know how to count words? That's, I wanted 4,000. And I'd have to push and push sometimes. Absolute opposite. Like with Manus, I put in something today. I asked for 4,000 words. It gave me 52 pages. 52 pages. It was good. It was interesting information. And then I had to go in and say, remember how I asked for the 4,000 words? And then it fixed it. But damn, it has a lot to say. If students turn in an essay that a detector says AI was used, but that they say it was their own words, and are typically good students, how do you know for sure? I'm going to come back to that one in a minute because that's probably one we should, take a good like 10 minutes and really go in deep. And I'm going to pull up some of my slides and so forth, and we'll really talk about that further. Um, Two other things. Oh, and I missed one because I remember someone asked about citation. Citation hasn't been fully worked out yet. Most of the styles have come up with something to use. I think they've all done a terrible job. So like MLA has something, and APA, you can just look it up online. But I'm on the board of a journal, and we've asked people to like literally just explain to us how they used it. So if they used it to help write the piece, they would need to say, I used this AI and I used it to do these steps, and or like these parts are written by the AI. Because really that's what matters. Because whoever you're citing for needs to know in some detail how exactly you used it. And I don't think a few words in parentheses are ever going to capture that. I think we're going to, it's going to be a thing where like we use footnotes, start using footnotes to go into some detail to explain where we're using it and where we're not using it when we publish. And so for now, that's what I would ask your students to do is, if you've told them they can use it, they should give you their the prompts they used and which parts they used it on, and like, did you use it to brainstorm ideas at the beginning? Did you use it to polish at the end? Did you use it to help you figure out where the gaps in your thinking were? Like literally tell me how you used it. Or you can do what I do with you all, and that is tell you to just copy and paste the whole damn thing. And so I can just see everything that happened. So you have to be very specific when talking to AI. Totally. In fact, what I tell people is literally picture the AI as an assistant. It's a young assistant. They're smart. They're smart assistant, but also flaky. They're a smart, flaky assistant. And oh, they're smart, but they're just not, they mess things up a lot. And so picture that person. And now, anytime you ask AI for something, imagine that's the person you're talking to. And think about all the detail you would tell that person to keep them from messing it up. Yeah. And for the most part, the more detail, the better. All right. So that brings us up to this big question of AI detection. AI detection. So hang on a second and let me pull something up. All right. I'm going to be skipping some slides, so I'm not going to put it into regular presentation mode so I can see. But so most of the research I've done on this has been for use by college professors. So most of these numbers have to do with college students. But we know that college students are using it like crazy. And hopefully you realize that there are these things called humanizers that your students could take something written by AI, put it through a humanizer, and then it makes it much harder for it to be detected. So almost the bigger problem is that that you would miss one that was AI as opposed to accidentally saying one was AI when it wasn't. You kind of got two problems, right? But there's going to be a whole lot more of the you don't even notice it, and it goes on through, and that's a problem. I want you to also think about the fact that we tend to think about AI as a problem with student writing, but I also want you to think about how your students might be using it to read. So let's say you gave your students a novel to read. they could, if it's a common novel, obviously they could ask AI to just give them a summary. But even if it's not, they could use an AI that summarizes readings for them. So be aware of that. It's not just about students using it to write, they're also you could use it to read for them. There's a book that is so good. And it's this one, The Opposite of Cheating. And this was written by a woman who her entire career, the thing that she has studied is cheating. Um, why students cheat, how they cheat. Her job is she's like like if someone's caught cheating at the university she works for, they are sent to her. She knows so much about it. And she's just amazing. So, and her co-author is also really good. So, if this is a big problem for you and like maybe your school requires that students do a lot of homework, this might be a book that you would really enjoy. Um, I do think that something that might help you is to talk about it more. I mean, I've talked to teenagers who have said that none of their teachers have talked about it other than to basically say, don't use it. I don't want to catch any of you using it. And that was as far as the conversation went. But I love this. I'm going to read you this slide. Using AI to offload work that would help your brain grow is like switching from riding a regular bike for your 3-mile commute to using an e-bike instead. Your muscles and aerobic capacity will start to deteriorate. In the same way, the less you use your brain, the less it grows and changes. If you want to be smart, great at problem solving, and develop an agile mind that can handle whatever comes your way in this crazy world, there is no substitute for pushing your brain to its limits. When AI helps your brain work harder, it is a support. When AI does the thinking for you, it is destructive. Perhaps beyond switching to an e-bike, it's like paying someone else to exercise for you and thinking you'll get stronger. So what I've done with some of the kids I work with is show them this slide and then have them in small groups talk about it. I often send them up to whiteboards and like write key ideas they're starting to have because most people don't want to be dumb. But if they use a lot of AI and they're not working their brain out, they are not going to turn out to be the brightest tool in the box. And most people don't want that. But they haven't fully, I mean, they're teenagers or adolescents, and they just haven't thought through what destruction it could have for their brain. So here's a thing that I think is really interesting. Sometimes I think you're going to want to do nothing because that would be a lot easier. You just look at it and be like, I think this is probably written by AI, but I'm just going to let it go. I don't have time for this. Well, here's a quotation from the woman who wrote that book. She says, cheating must be detected to create a teachable moment for the majority of our students, to ensure a level playing field for those who are working authentically, and also to ensure that we are not graduating students who have cheated their way to, in this case, higher education certification, but through a degree at all. So you have to do something about it, even though you would probably rather not, and it's going to take up your time. So what are you going to look for? Well, these are the things you should look for. Substantial changes in tone, style, or content compared to a student's previous work. If it's a project that required research and you're not really seeing the research there, that would be a problem. Oftentimes, students aren't very good at using the AI, so the work doesn't really fit the course content, doesn't meet the assignment criteria. Maybe the quality of work is just way beyond what you'd expect of a 7th grader or 12th grader or whatever. AI has an unusually large number of often like bullet points, asterisks. It's really into asterisks. I have no idea why. Or sometimes you just read something and you're like, it just sounds like AI. So those are things you should look for. Here are some words that AI loves that students rarely use. So you might want to start to get to know some of those words, and if you see them, think, that's an unusual one. That student probably doesn't even know that word. But something that I think might be particularly useful to you is what's called a stylometry prompt. And in a stylometry prompt, you're putting in either like multiple things that a student has written and asking an AI to tell you if it appears that all those things were written by the same person. Because it turns out that as humans, even if you write like a journal entry and then an essay, a 5-paragraph essay, and then like a review for a movie, those seem like 3 very different things. But the way you write is the way you write. And an AI could tell you if something was written by the same person or not. So, for example, a friend of mine was looking at someone's thesis and for an EDS degree, and said, I just feel like some of it is written by her and some of it isn't. So we asked the AI, do all of the paragraphs seem to have been written by the same person? And it did extensive data analysis on it and then gave us this chart. And you can see a bunch of the paragraphs all cluster together. Those were all the ones that the student did write. And they all look pretty similar because that's that student's style. But then there are these other paragraphs that were real outliers, very different from those. And then it was very easy for us to see that about a third of it had been written by AI. And in this case, the student had been told that AI could not be used for writing this particular work. So this is one of the easiest ways to know for sure, or pretty close to for sure. And especially if you have multiple examples of a student's work, you're not just saying which paragraphs, but, are all of these written by the same person? That's going to make a big difference. And I'm going to put this in the chat. Hang on a second. I'm going to put a link to my prompts lists. You may have already seen this. In fact, I'm going to do a screen share so you can see how I get to this. If you want to see the prompts that I have written, not all of them, but some of them, I need to upload more of them now. You go to the website learningthatmatters.weebly.com. That's my book. Hang on a second. Put that in the chat. Okay, so you come to my website and Zoom puts so many things in the way. You click on resources and then you scroll down to the very first link, and that will take you to my AI prompts for teaching. And there's just a little introduction here, but then there are just tons of prompts. And you can click on any one and it'll take you to the prompt. But I wanted to show you the stylometry prompt. So I'm going to click here under AI detection. And here's the prompt. So you just copy and paste that into the AI and then upload the student's work and run it, and it'll tell you. I'll be quiet for a minute and let you look at this. All right. That was a lot of questions.
So you said that you just showed us is a way to check for AI?
That's right. And it works quite well. It's far more accurate than most types of detection.
Can
And
you show that screen one more time?
yes, hang on. All right, so first I'm gonna put the ebook information up. I'm gonna put that in the chat. Open too many things. Okay, so if you wanted the ebook slide, I just put that in. And then I'm going to copy and paste the stylometry prompt. Hang on. Actually, I'm not going to copy and paste the whole prompt. I'm just going to give you a link. So you click in that link in the chat, it'll take you to that prompt. All right. You now know a lot more about AI. Did it make you think of any other questions that you wanted to ask? All right, then. Let's do one more breakout group. And here's the question that I want you to answer. The last full module you did was about learning strategies. I want to know the strategy that you are most likely to use yourself. So, like when you think back to all the strategies you learned, which one do you think, I'm actually going to try that? And why? So just take a minute and think while I put the breakout rooms together. This one's going to be a quick one. Let's do 4 minutes. So each person has like 1 minute to explain what learning strategy that you haven't tried before do you want to try now that you've learned more about it. And you're going to be with a slightly different group. And I will see you back in 4 minutes. For those of you who are watching this as a video later, you're going to want to get ready to do the Kahoot. And you'll answer the Kahoot questions in the chat or in the Pruzol annotation chat. About 40 more seconds till they come back from the breakout rooms.
Tori.
All right. To end the night, we're going to do the Kahoot, and we're going to do it pretty fast and see how you do. So you'll need to go to the website that I just put in the chat, kahoot.it. You can either do this on your computer, or if you want to just like pull out your phone and do it kind of separate, on your phone, you could do that.
Is there a game pin?
Yes, hang on. All right, it's loading the pin. 3597664. All right, let's go. It's better to take down exactly what the professor says than to put it in your own words.
Do we know which one is true and false?
Red triangle is true and blue diamond is false.
Okay, because it doesn't show up like that on our screens.
Yeah, I know, isn't that weird? Yeah, that is false, and almost all of you got that right. Yeah, because you don't really learn it until you put it in your own words. The most effective study strategies are the ones you have found are most comfortable for you. Ooh, I caught more of you on this one. That is something that I taught for years was true, because we all thought it was true. But it turns out that if you use strategies that are actually a little uncomfortable for you, they work better. You learn better. So like if you hate doing mind maps, if you make yourself do a mind map, you actually learn more. That's a good one to tell students, especially if they tell you they don't like something. If you're struggling as you study, you are probably doing something right. Yay! Yeah, that's true. I mean, studying should feel like a hard workout. If it's easy, it usually means you're just reviewing. Rereading your notes 2 to 3 times the night before a test is better than if you only reread once. While it is one of the most popular ways to study, it is not, rereading more than once does not help. So like they did studies where they would take a class of students and they would have a third reread once, a third reread twice, and a third reread 3 times, and it didn't make any difference. The ones who reread 3 times did the same as the people who reread once. But rereading a text or notes once is an excellent study strategy. Actually, it's not an excellent study strategy. It's okay. Won't hurt. Might help a little. There are lots of better study strategies. Yeah. Yeah. Wow, I got almost all of you on that one. Does trying to solve a problem before you've been taught how to solve it help you learn more or reinforce possible mistakes? It does, of course, help you learn more. That one, I think I would be disappointed if anyone missed that, given how often I use pre-questions to make sure that you learn more. Your intelligence is something you can change. Yes, that's true. That's another one where for a while brain scientists thought that it wasn't true, but now we realize that it is absolutely true. Some small aspects of intelligence are inborn, but really the vast majority of intelligence is something you develop. The more often you're exposed to something, the better you will remember the details. I did catch quite a few of you on this one. Um, Actually, just being exposed to something doesn't necessarily help you remember it at all. And I'm about to prove it to you on the next slide. The penny that is the real penny, is it in line 1 or line 2 or line 3? Yeah, it was the very first penny. But think how many times you have seen a penny. I mean, thousands. thousands of times. And yet it was hard to do, wasn't it? Because just purely being exposed to something does not make a big difference. You have to process it, which is why I don't just ask you to read. I ask you to read and annotate and apply. Because just purely reading something, sometimes it doesn't stick worth a damn. You would be better off if your professor provides 3 short quizzes over the material or 3 short reviews of the material. Yay! Good job. Yeah, quizzes are much better. You can mix it. Like what I would say you should do with your own students is ask a quiz question. They answer it, like maybe on a mini whiteboard, or like if it's multiple choice, they could, hold up 3 fingers or 2 fingers or whatever. So ask the quiz question, have them answer, and then review. And then do another question, have them answer, review. So it's really more, the students immediately know whether they're getting it or not. The test is to toss a beanbag into a bucket from 3 feet away. Which group does better? The group that practices throwing beanbags from 3 feet away, or the group that practices at 2 and 4 feet, but never 3? Yeah, this is a crazy one. And if you coach, I would totally, um, think about how often, let's say you have students, throwing from the free throw line, and when really you should probably have them throwing from a foot in front, 2 feet to the side, really move it around. Rehearsing skills in your head helps you improve on them in real life. Yeah, that's true. Like if you are getting ready to play a sport, picturing yourself like going through the motions helps. If you're going to do like a speech, it helps to practice it in your head beforehand. Sometimes even on your way to work, you might be picturing to yourself, okay, so first period, first we're going to do this and then this. I need to make sure to, say this. That helps. 3 more questions. For straight up memorization of simple facts, vocabulary, etc., nothing beats flashcards. It's true. They're perfect because students can use them to study on their own. They immediately know if they got the answer right or not. They can put them in piles. So like the ones they're consistently getting right, they don't need to keep practicing those. They should be focusing on the ones that they're consistently getting wrong, right? So that if they can pile them up, that helps. Yeah, when I was young, very young, the first article I published was about all the different ways that students could study vocabulary. And one of the things I said in the article was, that flashcards were kind of old-fashioned, a little lame. I didn't use the word lame, but at any rate, and now I take it all back. If you're practicing something, it is best to practice different skills separately. Ooh, look, we got a half and half. Yeah, it's best to mix it up because in real life things are usually pretty mixed up. Like, um, you it would be best to, shoot a free throw and then a layup and then a layup and then a 3-pointer and then maybe another layup. Because, when you play basketball, that's what happens. But the same is true of just about anything. Like with math problems, if they are just constantly doing the same type of math problem but with different numbers, it's not as good as if they're doing a few with different numbers, but then they get one that's actually a review problem from the previous unit, and then there's this one that's a little bit different. Maybe now I'm throwing in a word problem. That kind of thing is actually quite good.
So that one is true?
Trying to see
Because I marked true and it told me I was wrong.
It is best to practice different skills. Yeah, what it means is instead of doing a bunch of one and a bunch of another, practicing them separately, you're supposed to intermingle them. So it is not that this is false. It isn't best to practice skills separately. It's best to practice them mingled together.
Okay, that wording was a little confusing.
Yeah, it is. The wording isn't great. Second to last one. If what you're reading is a little out of focus, you will remember the content better. It's true. And why? Because by pushing, your brain has to work a little harder to read it. And because of that, you're more likely to remember it. Not that you should have things be out of focus. There's usually plenty of other ways that the work you're doing is already kind of difficult. But yeah, they did some studies. Last question. If you have social media alerts turned on while you study, that can help too. Yeah, of course that is false. But think about why. When something's a little out of focus, it's harder, but it's harder in a way that pulls you deeper into the reading. You're having to focus more. Whereas social media alerts are doing the opposite. They're pulling you out of what you're reading. They are making it harder to read, but in a way that removes you from it instead of making you more focused. So let's see how this all panned out. Woo-hoo!
Yay me, I get an extra 100, right?
Right. All right, everybody. You are good to go. And if you have any specific questions for me, stick around and I'll answer them. But otherwise, I will probably see you either Tuesday or Thursday, depending on what day you signed up for. It was good to see you all.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do your heart. There it goes. Good night.
Bye.